Hey everyone, I saw that we hit like 800 subscribers to this channel, so thanks. I'm glad you guys like this stuff. I realized today that there weren't really any good guides to tell people how to pop their defensive cooldowns. It's kind of something that you're just supposed to know without anyone ever telling you, and if you don't know how to do it, people just yell at you and call you trash. So I figured this could be a good resource for some people who are just getting into SWTOR or the PvP scene in general. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Mercenaries and Commandos, a class renowned for its defensive abilities and survivability, but only if you pop your defensives correctly. If you waste your defensives, you're pretty much asking to get nuked, so let's solve that problem, shall we? For the sake of clarity, we're going to split this lesson up into two sections: damage reduction cooldowns and space makers. Alright, let's talk about damage reduction cooldowns first. To kick things off, we'll start with the iconic shield. This is called Energy Shield for Mercenaries and Reactive Shield for Commandos. As a baseline, your shield gives you 25% damage reduction, which is going to boost our total DR up to about 50% due to our heavy armor. This lasts for about 12 seconds and has a 2-minute cooldown. While this flat reduction is mediocre on its own, we take some very quality utilities to go with this defensive to really take it to the next level. On Mercenary, they are called Energy Rebounders and Trauma Regulators, and on Commando, they are called Trauma Stabilizers and Reflexive Shield. With these utilities, every time you're attacked with Shield Up, you're going to build a stack of healing, up to a total of 10 stacks. Once your shield expires, you will be healed for 4% for every stack you generated. Now notice that I said once your shield expires. If you die with the shield still on, you won't get any healing. So if you're going to die, you can actually right-click off your shield buff and cash in on all those stacks you built up immediately, but the trade-off is, of course, that you will lose out on all that damage reduction. But if you're going to be dead anyways, it might be worth it to click off that shield and play your cards from there. Additionally, every time you take damage, the cooldown of our shield will be reduced by 3 seconds. This effect can only trigger every 1.5 seconds though, which means that if you are constantly getting attacked, our 2-minute cooldown will turn into about a 1-minute cooldown, so we can be popping this shield relatively frequently. Next is our Reflect. On Mercenary, it's called Responsive Safeguards, and on Commando, it's called Echoing Deterrence. It lasts for 6 seconds, and during that time, all single target attacks are going to be reflected back at the original target for 50% of the total damage. Additionally, every time you are hit with a single target attack, you will heal for 5% of your health. It has a 2-minute cooldown, so not great, but also not terrible. This is a great way to avoid single target damage for a few seconds, and can even be popped while stunned, which is pretty neat. However, area of effect damage will still go through this Reflect, so be careful, it does not make you immortal. Next we have our Culto. On Mercenary it's called Culto Overload, and on Commando it's called Adrenaline Rush. Because we're taking the Culto Surge and Adrenaline Surge utilities, our Culto is going to heal us very rapidly up to 60% of our health. It is a very handy ability, but it has a 3-minute cooldown, so it's not going to be available very often. We should also mention that we have Warzone Med Packs and Warzone Adrenals. These consumable items will instantly heal you for 35% of your health and give you 15% damage reduction for 15 seconds. These have a 3-minute cooldown and are only usable once per fight, so it is a one-time boost that's really handy, but you need to spend them wisely. Finally, for our DPS variants, healers, we have our defensive ability that some people kind of forget about in the form of our Threat Drop. On Mercenary it is called Chafe Flare, and on Commando it is called Diversion. For Arsenal and Gunnery players, once you activate your Threat Drop, you will straight up absorb the next 2 direct attacks. And then for Innovative Ordnance and Assault Specialist players, our Threat Drop will increase our chance to avoid all incoming attacks to 40% for 6 seconds. Okay, so that's the basic description of what each defensive does, but how do we use them? First, let's establish some ground rules for popping defensive cooldowns. Generally, you only want to be rolling with 1 defensive cooldown at a time. If you blow all your defensive cooldowns at once, you will survive your current predicament, but you're also going to have nothing to keep you alive once those cooldowns run out, which is going to get you killed. So if at all possible, only pop 1 defensive cooldown at a time. Alright, now the priorities. When you're first getting attacked, you're going to want to pop your shield first. This way you start off with a flat 50% damage reduction to their opening burst, which is very nice. You also heal yourself afterwards for free, which is very nice. And then you will get that cooldown rolling as quickly as possible. If you're getting consistently tunneled, there's a good chance that you will have another energy shield ready to go once you run out of your other cooldowns. Next on the priority list is our Reflect. With a 2-minute cooldown, it's possible to get multiple reflects off in a single fight, but somewhat unlikely. By popping this cooldown second, we accomplish a couple of things. First, there is the direct benefit of getting heals and reflecting damage, which is great obviously, but you also have to remember that players are impatient monkeys. They don't want to sit around for 6 seconds and do nothing. Odds are, some of them will go off and chase other targets instead of sitting there to wait out your cooldown. This gives you a few key seconds to slip away, find some cover, and use your self-heals to get you back to a stable position. All the while, your shield will be slowly coming off cooldown. However, there may be times where it's best to pop your Reflect before you pop your shield. If you have 2 concealment ops or 2 AP power techs about to unleash their burst on you in an opener, you can pop your Reflect immediately and prevent yourself from getting nuked in the opener. There are only a few cases where this is a good idea, but when going up against high burst damage teams, it can be better to survive the opening burst at 95% health and no Reflect, compared to surviving at 20% health with Reflect still in your back pocket, or even worse, taking a full-blown dirt nap. If you get stunned in the opener and are preparing to eat multiple cell bursts or a few volatile strikes, it might be a good idea to hit that Reflect now and then deal with the consequences later. When it comes to using Culto, you want to wait until after you've blown your other defensive cooldowns. That way those other cooldowns are taking away as much as possible while you're staying alive with Culto. With a 3-minute long cooldown, it is unlikely that you're going to get off multiple Cultos in a single fight. So it's best to use this last in order to hopefully get a better chance at more shields and more reflects. Keep in mind that Culto's healing is nice, but it can be tunneled through. The sweet spot to pop Culto is between 15 and 30% of your health left. Anything less and you might just die through Culto, and then anything more and you'll be wasting that valuable healing. Finally, our med pack and our adrenal are really our last ditch efforts to stay alive before we're down for the count. Once you spend this, you better be close to having your energy shield back up, otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. For DPS players, you will want to pop your threat drop when massive burst is about to hit. If you see a marksman sniper lining up an ambush or a thermal detonator taking your debuff tray, that's probably a good time to pop your threat drop. You'll want to use this as early into a fight as possible, as its short 45-second cooldown means that you can get multiple threat drops off in a single fight. It doesn't fit into our defensive quote-unquote rotation. You simply want to pop it when a burst is about to chunk off half your health bar. Managing these defensive cooldowns is vital to your success on these classes. If you die with any of them still available, it means you're basically throwing. But if you can handle this priority system and pop your defensive cooldowns in order, you're going to find yourself surviving for a very long time indeed. Alright, that's all for our defensive reduction cooldowns. Let's move on to our space makers, of which we have 3. Our primary space maker is our knockback, known as Jet Boost on Mercenary and Concussion Charge on Commando. This knockback knocks back all enemies around us in a 360-degree angle. Additionally, because of the utilities that we take, the cooldown of this knockback is reduced every time we're attacked, meaning that we can have a knockback about every 10 seconds if we're getting tunneled. Our secondary space maker is our backwards leap. On Mercenary it's called Rocket Out, and on Commando it's called Propulsion Round. This ability has 2 charges and sends you flying back 20 meters, which makes it a great way to create space between yourself and enemy players. Additionally, the 17-second cooldown means you will be getting plenty of these escape opportunities. It can be a little tricky getting used to this ability, as it's going to send you backwards so you really can't see where you're going, but once you get used to aiming it properly, your backwards leap can be a great way to get to cover quickly and heal up using your off heals, or just escape some melee players and put some line of sight between you and them. However, this ability can only be used when we're not rooted, which leads us to our final ability, Legs, also known as Hydraulic Overrides on Mercenary or Hold the Line on Commando. Legs gives us 6 seconds of immunity to roots and slows with a 45-second cooldown. It also gives us a 30% movement speed boost, which isn't great, but beats a poke in the eye. While this ability on its own isn't a great way to escape danger, popping it to free you from roots and slows and following it with a backwards leap can get you out of trouble very quickly and is an excellent idea. Remember, as mercenaries and commandos, you are a ranged class. The best way to avoid death is to stay in range. So to get out of trouble, we want to be prioritizing our knockback due to its short cooldown, and then use our backwards leap to get out of trouble, popping hydraulic overrides whenever we are slowed or rooted and cannot pop our backwards leap to escape trouble. Effectively avoiding damage by staying out of melee and using our space-making cooldowns, coupled with effectively negating damage by popping our defensive cooldowns in the correct order and our ability to heal ourselves with off heals, makes a talented mercenary and commando player a very tanky class indeed. And as always, practice makes perfect. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks. Oh, and thanks for all the support. I really do appreciate it. Alright, that's all I got. Peace.